My sister just texted me, chickens do not asexually reproduce or eat peanuts. Hey guys, it's AJ. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a video I wasn't actually gonna film for quite a while, but I'm home alone for about 4 days and I was just thinking about this, and so I figured I might as well film it now while I have the thoughts in my brain and it's fresh in my mind. But this video is not going to make sense, probably in terms of flow and construction, so bear with me just so that like the little anxiety gremlin in my head shuts up. Two things. I understand the light looks funny. It's because I am just using a ring light and no natural light behind me because it's 7 o'clock at night, it's been raining all day, there's no sun anyway, and this ring light is all I have. So I'm gonna try to fix the lighting in post. And also, because it's raining and humid and my hair dries naturally wavy, if at any point there's a wing that sticks out from my head right here, just ignore it. Also, before I start, I want you guys to know that this video is not going to be entirely cheerful, and there's going to be a lot of stuff in this video that might be triggering or squicky to some people, so I have down below all of the topics covered. Look at that, and if there's something that you can't or don't want to listen to, skip past it. Please use discretion. Please take care of yourselves. The only reason I'm filming this video is because I feel as though I need to start normalizing some of the stuff, because who else is gonna do it if I don't? And also, it's probably gonna be cathartic and I'm probably gonna cry a little bit, so just like don't judge me for that. I remember about a month ago I was having a conversation with like my dearest friend outside of this home, and she and I were talking about my issues with hating my physical body, and she brought to my attention that my hatred of my physical body and my hatred of my outward physical body and my hatred of like my physical inside body probably go hand in hand. The more I think about it like over the past few weeks, the more I realize that she's right, and like I kind of always knew that, but hearing someone else say it was like, oh, I should probably take that seriously, and oh yeah, I have a lot of issues. Okay, great. Like everything else in my life, nothing is simple, everything is entwined, so buckle up, kids, here we go. My mom was told repeatedly by many doctors, but one in particular, that she was never going to be able to have kids. She then proceeded to have 2 kids, probably mostly out of spite, just kidding, my sister and myself. I'm the oldest of 2 kids. She had me at the time relatively young. She had me when she was in her early 30s. I think she was 32, and she had my sister when she was 34. My mom for all of her life has been sick. She was out of school more than she was in school. By the grace of God, literally, she finished her master's degree. She, you know, has done incredible things with her life, but she's been really, really sick while doing so, and so that's hampered her ability to succeed by this world's definition. She can't work outside the home. She doesn't have a job outside the home, which was a small fraction of the reason why my parents homeschooled me. She, over the years, has deteriorated in certain ways right in front of me, which has been very difficult to watch. At the time, she didn't know this, but she gave birth to 2 kids that carried all of the things wrong with her that are genetic, which is about 80% of all this, which we're going to talk about in a minute. I was born abnormal right from the start. I was born early, not by a lot, but I was born early enough where the doctors were like, oh, what the heck, and I was also born yellow, which means I was jaundiced, which means my liver from the get-go didn't work. And then things just got worse, because when I got home, I cried constantly. I didn't sleep. I was constipated. I developed failure to thrive, which basically means that I didn't want to consume anything. No breast milk, no formula, no nothing. I didn't want any of it. I walked late, I talked late, I didn't want to do anything except lay on the floor and read books, or look at books I guess at the time, which honestly that's a big mood, but at the time it was very, very concerning. Now I can do it and people are just like, okay, well maybe you're a lazy bum, or maybe you have no homework due. It's probably the first one. As I got older and started to be like, you know, an aware human being, I didn't really like realize or think or fathom that there was something wrong with me, probably because I was homeschooled. And that decision to homeschool came out of 3 things. The first one being my immune system was shot. I literally had a doctor's note, and I still do to this day, that says, do not give this person any kind of flu shot or immunization or her immune system will shut down and she will die. You can come at me, but I'm one of those people that physically cannot get vaccinated. Die mad about it. The other reason was because my parents wanted to give me, my mom wanted to give me a Christian education, and in Minnesota, which was the education state, a Christian private education was extremely expensive. We didn't have money for that because why? We had to spend all our money on healthcare for 3 people. Was it covered by insurance? No. Is it to this day? No. But that's a problem for later on in the story. The third reason was that my mom couldn't work outside of the home to support said private education, but she had a master's degree in early childhood education and she went to school to teach. And in Minnesota, homeschooling was like not a thing. Parents did it all the time. It was like, okay, go ahead. We had to take standardized tests every year to prove we were on par with our peers. I was always way above my peers in every subject but math, I'll have you know. And that was the end of that. So that's what we did. At the time when I was young, I didn't really understand that homeschooling was different than the way other kids went to school. It was like just not a thing in my life, probably because I didn't watch TV. I didn't really watch anything except like videos my mom brought home from the library, but I read a crap ton of books. I was laying on the floor and there's like I swear, every picture of me as a child, I am laying on my floor, like reading a book. I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome when I was very, very young. So I physically had no energy to do anything except for read a book. The first time I became aware of the fact that there was something wrong with me was around that 6 to 7 age mark when I started taking dance classes at the local community center, because that was a thing you did in Minnesota. I don't know of a single community center now, like here in Philly, that does that, which makes me sad because I would have loved to go to one and take ASL classes. But anyway, I digress. This video is going to be so long. I'm so sorry. Anyway, dance class. I realized that I couldn't do the splits, which was a very, like, a lame thing to notice, but all of my peers could drop to splits no problem. This was like such an entry-level class, it wasn't even funny. These weren't kids that were being bred to be like the next Maddie Ziegler or something. These were like just kids down the block that their parents wanted to teach dance so that they could get out of the house for an hour. So the fact that they could do the splits and I couldn't, it made me feel kind of weird. So I was like, hey mom, how come I can't do the splits? And she basically said, like, you're sick, your body is sick, and so your muscles are not as limber as your classmates. Your muscles have toxins in them, so you are never going to be able to do the splits like your classmates. Your muscles are not flexible enough to do that. Your joints are not flexible enough to do that either. And I was like, okay. And at the time I didn't think much of it. At the time I asked a lot of questions and it probably drove my mom crazy. The fact that I had an answer for what was wrong with me was helpful. And that would later prove to bite me in the rear end in a huge freaking way. Years go by with us being sick. I don't really fully understand still at this point that I'm sick to the point that most people aren't. I know I don't get flu shots. I know that my muscles and joints are screwed up. I know that I see a chiropractor because my muscles and joints are screwed up. Even though I haven't been in a car accident, my body behaves like it does at the age of 9, which is concerning. When I was 10, my mom took me to a therapist. During all this time, we exhausted every sense of like traditional MD doctors, all that stuff, any sort of traditional treatment, we exhausted it all. My mom went to the freaking Mayo Clinic and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with her or me or my sister. The only thing they could tell me was that your hormones are super out of whack. Your body is behaving like somebody who's about 3 to 4 years older than you are. So when I'm 6 and my body's acting like it's 10, that's not a good thing. Now it'd be not so bad. I'd be acting like I was 24 instead of 20, which, like, okay, chill, whatever. So yeah. My mom went to see a homeopath because homeopathic medicine for a time helped her. And she took me with her. Well, actually she took my whole family, but I went in the room with her and my sister and dad waited in the waiting room. I don't remember why she took me with her, but I have this distinct memory of sitting in the office and my mom started talking about all this stuff that was going on at home, and the homeopath linked a lot of my mom's physical symptoms to the enduring stress at home, and that's how I was introduced to the concept of PTSD. I don't really know how much I should say. I'm gonna try to keep it really vague on purpose, but if you guys can probably infer what I'm saying, but like I'm gonna keep it vague just in case. So someone in my close family, from the time that I was born, actually no, from the time my sister was born, was verbally and emotionally abusive. And to a degree, this person still is. Right now, it's not so much active abuse, it's like just the fact that this person is in my space that is a constant stress on me because I still see this person almost every day. But back then, it was actively happening. This person had the police called on them once for spanking my sister for crying instead of going to sleep when she had way worse chronic fatigue than I did, and she is now an insomniac. This person sank the family so deep in debt, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, that we almost lost our house, which put a huge amount of stress on my life when I was young. Actually, screw this. Okay, my dad did this stuff. This is my dad. So, my dad did a lot of things that he should not have done. He made it very clear when I was in high school that he didn't want to spend time with me because he didn't care. He verbally said that to my mom. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but he said it, and I heard it, and my mom knows I heard it. My mom made it very, very plain to my sister and I from a very young age that this was being handled. She made it very clear to us that my dad was being abusive and that she was handling it. She didn't do it out of the sense of burdening her young children. She did it because she wanted us to know that she had it, that somebody had it under control and someone was taking care of us. But at the same time, my father was not being the husband my mom needed. He didn't have her back. He wasn't taking care of her. He was making money, and that was about it, which is a huge sacrifice, and I'm not discounting that, but like, it's not enough to like help create children, fling them into this world, and then expect your wife to do all the work. And maybe that's old-fashioned of me to say, but I don't think that's realistic at all. When I saw, as I was getting older, him not stepping up and being the husband and the father he was supposed to be, I very, very quickly grew a very callous heart. I very, very quickly decided, if you're not gonna be the man of the house, I'm gonna be the man of the house. Because at the time I was probably like 10 or 11, I was reading these books, mostly historical fiction, based in time periods where when the father died, the oldest child, usually in these books it was a son because heteronormativity, took over the father's place. In my kid brain, I went, well, I'm the oldest, therefore I get to be the man of the house because my dad obviously isn't stepping up. Flawed logic, yes, but I did it. And for a time it worked so well that my mom didn't realize I was doing it, and then when I was about 16 she figured it out, and that did a whole thing. Anyway, okay, moving on. So, I was in the homeopath's office, and we started talking about my dad. The homeopath was like, so, she was looking at my mom's test, and she was like, so from what I'm seeing here, it seems as though you might have some sort of enduring stress in your life. Stress that's like chronic, outside of your body stress. And my mom was like, yeah, my husband. And the woman, the homeopath, I still remember her name. Oh my gosh, this was like such a traumatic / defining moment of my life. I remembered this so clearly, and my long-term memory is crap. This is so bizarre to me. So my mom goes, yeah, my husband. And my mom starts talking about it, and I'm sitting in the office, I'm like 10, I'm bored to death, I like know all this, I lived it, I don't need to hear this. And then she starts asking me questions. And at the age of 10, I didn't like to talk. She starts asking me about my dad, about how the things he did made me, and was doing, made me feel. Being asked how I felt about something by someone who actually wanted to know made me feel so uncomfortable. And this was such an uncomfortable experience, and I remember it so clearly. I was sitting in the office and she asked me stuff about like how my dad made me feel and like all this stuff, and the whole time, it was like a movie. The whole time she was talking, all I could remember was the very first memory I had as a child, which was standing in the grocery line at the grocery store with my dad and sister. I was probably 4 or 5, and I was asking my dad a lot of questions, and maybe I was being annoying, but like kids that age pester, they do. My dad chose to get down on his knees, grab my face like this, and squeeze my cheeks really, really hard, and hiss in my face to shut up. I clearly remember his hands on my, this wasn't the first or the last time he would do that to me, but I remember staring at this ugly orange trim of the grocery line and like focusing very, very hard on not crying because my little sister was watching, and if I started to cry, then she would start to cry. And nothing was worse at that time than my little sister crying. So I didn't cry, I just kind of sucked it up and dealt with it. I'm remembering that very specific moment as this homeopath is asking me about my dad, and then that totaled with my mom being in the room watching me, and then I felt like I was about to cry. And when I feel like I'm about to cry, you'll probably hear it in this film if you haven't already, my chest voice starts to get strangled because it feels like something in my chest is constricting inward, and my throat right here starts to get really tight like you does when you're normally about to cry. So my voice got really thin, and all of a sudden I remember just going, I need to leave. And I just bolted out the door and I ran downstairs out to the car park, and I think I had my mom's keys in my pocket because, you know, she just left her 10-year-old kid with her keys all the time, and I just just like went out and I sat in the car and I didn't move. And then my parents and sister came out and my sister was like, you were crying, you embarrassed us. And my dad was sullen and stony and my mom didn't say anything. And we never talked about that incident again. And then my mom told me, the homeopath's name thinks that you have PTSD. And I later went back and was formally diagnosed with PTSD thanks to the enduring abuse from my father. Again, I was 10, so I didn't think too much about what PTSD meant. That would come later when I hit puberty. Let's talk about that, shall we? I hit puberty when I was 11, the following year. The period of time between ages 10 to age 14 were absolute hell. And I know everyone says it, but this was like physical and emotional and mental hell. When I was 11, I got my period. My mom warned me this would happen because she told me, like I said earlier, that my hormones were so imbalanced that I was probably gonna develop earlier. Cool, I was like, great, I had my period. I'm a woman and I got my purity ring. The following year, I really started to hit puberty. Everything plummeted to like the Earth's core in terms of crappiness. I hit puberty to the extent that I could no longer fit into clothes appropriate for my age. Other girls my age were shopping at Justice, or it was like Limited 2 is what it used to be called, but at that time it was Justice. I got cystic acne. I had to wear a full flippin' face of makeup. I had to shop in the women's section at Kohl's. Like I couldn't even fit into clothing age appropriate for me. I grew hips, thighs, a butt. I got double D cups in the span of like 6 months. I got stretch marks. My acne got so bad. That was the beginning of, I got acne all over my shoulders and my back, and the scars that they would leave. Now I didn't even pick at them because I thought that was disgusting. I don't even pick at my pimples, but they would disappear and they would leave scars. And all of that, I'm gonna cry because that was like such a crappy time in my life. Like all of that came together and it made me feel like my body was like at war, like it was attacking me, and I didn't understand like why this was happening to me. I remember like crying to my mom when she would just tell me like, you know, deal with this, is the way it's gonna be, you're gonna have to deal with it. But I remember just like going, Mom, like why did I get ugly? Like why do I look like this? Why do I feel like this? And she was just like, this is the way that it is because you're sick. I was diagnosed that year with clinical depression and also anxiety. So my brain chemicals were imbalanced and there were test results to prove it. We also found out that I had high levels of heavy metals in my body, mercury and cesium, you know, because that's totally normal. I also was very socially anxious to the point where I would sit in the car outside church and I wouldn't want to go in. I would look at my mom and be like, please don't make me go in. I feel like I'm gonna throw up. And she would always just be like, you kind of have to go in, kid. And I would go in and it would be fine, except it wasn't fine because none of my friends were around. Literally overnight, they all acted like I was dead to them. I'm not even exaggerating. And even my mom noticed and she was like, that's really weird. And I'm like, yeah, I know, what the heck? Did I do something? I don't know. So the social isolation, the changes in my body that were above and beyond normal puberty experiences, this was like, I felt sick all the time. I felt like on the edge of having a cold all the time, and that became my new baseline. That's how I feel all the time, constantly, right this very minute. Like I'm about, you know, that like achy feeling and like you're uncomfortable and your joints hurt and you feel like a scratch in your throat and you just feel exhausted and your eyes are heavy all the time. That's how I feel 24/7, and it started when I was 12. Then you had the mental illness, the depression, the anxiety, the PTSD. I remember writing in my journal, like, I want to kill myself. I thought about it. I tried to plan out a way to do it that wouldn't, like, you know, leave a mess. Like, I wanted to die because I felt like I would never get better. And I was just gonna be a waste of time and money and space forever. And sorry, that's like where I am right now again. So that's like really sad to me. I made it for 8 years, but okay, oh, come on, get it together. Sorry, okay. Around that time, I joined social media. My parents decided that I was mature enough to handle going on social media when I was about 12 or 13. The day that I turned 13, I made a Tumblr account, and that proved to be the best decision of my life, and also like one of the worst because Tumblr is a site from hell. I started to make internet friends, and I started to realize for the first time that at least the mental portion of what I was dealing with, I wasn't alone, and I wasn't crazy, and I wasn't a bad Christian. All of those things were things that I was like very afraid of. So that helped a little bit. I also started writing poetry and putting it on the internet, and I made a poetry account on Instagram when I was 14, and that helped. So I was coping, but I wasn't getting better. So I kind of lived in this weird stasis until we moved to Texas. We moved to Texas when I was 14. We left Minnesota and everything it signified to me, and I was very, very excited for like this fresh start. You know, I was like thinking, okay, I'm starting high school, like I can become a new person, it'll be great, blah, blah, blah. I'm like falling off my chair. When we went to Texas, the doctor we saw was very, very knowledgeable. She had an MD and she also had training in natural medicine. She looked at us and she ran like so many tests. I gave so much blood, and I realized then that I hate needles. I could care less about the sight of my own blood, but needles are like, get those things away from me. She told me that my kidney, liver, adrenal, and thyroid all didn't work right. And also that my intestines were blocked and I had a variation of IBS. So that was all good information, except, and this is the refrain that I would hear for the next 6 years, this is what's wrong with you, but we don't know what to do about it. Science hasn't gotten that far, medicine hasn't gotten that far. And I was just like, well, frick, thanks for that information. That's great. And that was around the time that I realized that I had severe touch aversion issues, and here's how I found out. So when I was 14 and we started at this church, I met these two boys that were my friends. I still speak to one of them today, not the one that I dated, but the other one. The two of them and me, we were inseparable. When I was 15, this boy asked me to be his girlfriend when we were at summer camp. Looking back, I didn't really experience any sort of attraction to him, except that he was like really easy for me to be around and hang out with, and I was like, okay, sure, I'll be your girlfriend, whatever. And we dated for about 8 months. Dated. Meaning that my dad would drive me to his school football games where he was in the marching band, and then he would come pick me up, and occasionally I would go hang out at his house. He only came to my house once. Part of why we broke up is because he didn't like that I wouldn't kiss him, and another part of why we broke up is because we left that church because of some stuff that was so not Christian that was going on, and it wasn't gonna work. I realized then that I was on a higher mental and emotional level than this guy was, and that was that. Despite the fact that I knew objectively that there was nothing wrong with my desire to not be kissed and everything wrong with his insistence that I do kiss him, I also felt really messed up about it because I realized when we were in a relationship, because he wanted to hold me on the couch and hug me and stuff, and that made me very uncomfortable. And when I started to realize that I was very touch adverse, then I started to feel like something else inside me was broken and wrong. And I remember like being 15 or 16, like sitting in my room and like journaling and being like, what is wrong with me? Why can't anyone touch me? Like, why do I feel like I'm gonna explode if someone just like casually like puts their hand on my arm? So the touch aversion thing only added fuel to the rapidly growing fire that was the assumption in my brain that there was something fundamentally wrong with me more than just my mental and physical issues, which was not objectively a good place to be for someone who was young and impressionable and just starting out. And then from then on out, it just kind of spiraled. I started at a new church and I made 3 really good friends. I fell in love with one of them, and that was a really messy, scary, and confusing time. At some point during that time, I figured out that I was asexual, meaning that I don't experience sexual attraction at all, which only contributed to making me feel more like a freak. Should have outlined because now I'm losing my train of thought. So that's kind of brings me to where I am. Actually, no, it doesn't. Better start with college. When I started college, I was only a little bit better mental health-wise and physical health-wise than I was when I was 12. When I started college, I pretty much had it under control, like the physical stuff. I was sick, I dealt with it, I went to the doctor once a week for a while, which was like, oh my gosh, and he was an hour away, it was awful. Anyway. So when I started college, it was fine, and then my mental health quickly started tanking. I don't know if it was the stress of the added workload. I don't know if it was just that I moved to another city and so I felt super isolated. I was also doing like super long distance with my best friend / romantic interest at the time. I don't know what it was, but I got really, really bad, really, really fast. It got to the point where I was so depressed and anxious that I broke down in tears in front of the news editor at the school paper, which, if you know me, that's something that I don't do. I don't cry in front of people. It was about something so small. And she was like, I love you very much and you need to go get help. And so I did. I went to the school counseling center and I waited an absurd amount of time for an appointment. when I finally got in, they told me that the only thing that would be, like, that I would be, like, suited for, or, like, that I would be, like, allowed to go to pretty much was, like, a group therapy thing, which I didn't want. I don't want to talk about my problems to other strangers. I knew that I needed help, like, serious help, because I was just collapsing mentally. And this therapist was like, you're not at active danger, you're not actively gonna commit suicide, you're not actively engaging in disordered eating practices, so all we can do is group therapy. And she said the word to me, it sounds like you're not handling stress of college well, like that's all this is. And I'm like, no, it's not. I promise you I am mentally ill, like what the heck? So after that I never went back, and I never sought therapy again, now or ever. I have this like feeling in my chest. So that brings us to now, and now I am I wish that I was making this video because the story had a good ending. But it doesn't, because since then I've only gotten worse, physically and mentally. I have chronic Lyme disease. I was diagnosed with that about 6 months ago. My depression and anxiety has only gotten worse. I lost the only close real life friend that I had in January due to, in part, my unwillingness to be physically intimate with someone in any way. I have come to the realization that there are many things about me that are fundamentally broken. There are many things about me that will never be better. There are many things about me that make me undesirable as a friend, as a romantic partner, as anyone except a professional colleague. I take comfort in the fact that I can perform well in school. I can do journalism despite all of this. But I'm also really lonely, and I feel really alone all the time. I don't want to die, but I don't want to exist in this body and in this brain anymore. And I'm not saying any of this to get attention, I'm saying it's because it's true. In my mind, the only valid reason for my existence is to do things that help other people, to do journalism that informs the public, to take care of my mom, to support my sister emotionally. I've started praying that God would just take away my desire to be loved romantically or platonically, that he would just take away my desire to be chosen first by someone. I know now that being born the way that I was born, being born broken, is going to lead to being broken my entire life. I know that I will incur massive expenses, financial, physical, emotional, mental, throughout my whole life. And it makes me feel like such a waste, because all I do is take up my parents' time and money and energy. Even when I move out, then I'll be all alone. And while I know that's probably just what's best for everyone, because all I'll do is create collateral damage, it's still really hard to imagine being totally alone, having no one in the world that lives near me or is with me that I can come home to and that will understand me. I've been told repeatedly by people in social settings I would typically go into, mostly church, I'm just too much. I'm too sick, I'm too broken, I'm too messed up. And that has to be okay, because this is all I have. I'm not sure if I properly described the kind of effect that that stuff had on me. I don't know if by now you guys are going, what is this dramatic person, like, what she went through was nothing, blah blah blah, but like, I cannot underscore how much I hate my body. My physical body, from the looks, my physical body on the inside, because everything that I hate about myself, my weight, the fat under my chin, all the things you guys hear me rip on in vlogs, the way that I lose words, you guys have heard me stutter and lose words, all that stuff stems from physical things wrong with me. Every single thing wrong with me. I don't wear this much makeup by choice, guys. I wear it because my skin is so screwed up that if I don't wear this much makeup, I look like I'm like I'm about to drop dead. I can't wear pretty summery things because the scars on my back and shoulders are so bad they disgust people and they disgust me. And I don't know if you know what it's like to live in a body where you look in the mirror and you just go, what the heck is that disgusting piece of meat? But that's how I live. And the worst part to me is I can't change any of it. So, yeah, that's me. I hope this explain something in some way. I'm sorry for all this. I hope you guys don't hate me after this. Thanks for being around. Happy videos are coming soon, I promise, but I felt it was important to be totally transparent about all of this because this is what I am, and I'd rather give you guys a chance to bail out now. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and thanks for dealing with the weird lighting and my crying and all that crap. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!